This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. Morning all. Thanks for joining the Door Heat Exchanger meeting. Let me just quickly share my screen and go over the agenda. Let's see. All right. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Excellent. So the two main items I wanted to go over. One is updates on the redfish definitions, specifically the items for the specification and how we can sort of prep towards this revision one of the submission to the OCP incubation committee for review. And I also wanted to talk about the OCP Tech Week 2020. In fact, let me just quickly get started on the OCP Tech Week. So the link over here will basically take you to the Tech Week page. The registration is now open. As Mike Thompson is going to be speaking, he won't have to worry about that as a speaker. But for anyone else who's looking to get involved in the OCP Tech Week, which is primarily designed to be sort of an engineering workshop, engineering discussion for each of the different tracks. This is a good opportunity to get involved in and ask questions and try to understand the different directions that the different ACS areas are taking. The ACS track itself is going to be on the 10th of November, which is a Tuesday. So if you want to register for it, just click on the registration link, and then there's a link over here to register. So the link is already available. So for those interested, please go ahead and do so. Going back to the agenda. Going back to the agenda really quick, we have two separate sessions coming out of, as a result of the work going on with the Door Heat Exchanger. I think one is just a general Door Heat Exchanger update. We'll do an RPU update as a follow-up to the virtual summits presentation by on air-assisted liquid cooling, followed by an open discussion based on these two topics over here. And then beyond that, we're going to have presentations on redfish, just to introduce the ACS community to this aspect of hardware management that OCP is hoping can sort of proliferate across the different streams. So John Liang is going to, he's confirmed that 10 minutes is more than adequate for Redfish for Dummies. And then Mike has graciously accepted to introduce the audience to Redfish for cooling systems, and then followed up by an open discussion, which I'm going to say the discussion in this area is going to be pretty intense because a lot of people in the ACS stream are looking forward to learning more about redfish for sure. With regards to template availability, I know, Mike, you had a question about that previously. I'm hoping maybe Michael Schill. I believe the templates are ready. The template is ready and available. Is there a link, or do we need to reach out to Archana or someone to get access to that?
The template is ready. Let me see if we put it on the website yet. Hang tight, I'll let you know in a minute.
Okay. Oops. Sorry, let me cancel that. Yeah, and as it states over here, the draft presentation submission is due the 9th, and the final presentation is due 30th. Mike, I already have your abstract, so I'll go ahead and put that into the planning document. I think the ACS lead sort of planning committee was hoping to to send out maybe like an 80% ready agenda by Friday, which is tomorrow. So for sure, I'll go ahead and put that in. Oh, so Michael Schill already sent out a link. So God. Let me
Yep,
just.
so Don, you can find that link on the OCP website underneath the call for participation page under the OCP Tech Week.
Okay.
Right there. And there's the slide
Oh,
template
there
there
you
at the
go. Oh, okay, cool. Let me just copy that and put that into the Google Docs so it becomes. All right. Excellent. Thanks, Michael. All right. So that's about OCP Tech Week 2020. Are there any questions based on what we just quickly went over? Yeah, just to add, the ACS track is probably going to be an all-day event, the Tuesday, November 10th. So just like I said, the agenda or the schedule will be coming out shortly, but just want to give a heads up to anyone who's interested in hearing the different areas that will be touched on, which will be immersion, the cold plate area, including the blind mate interfaces, door heat exchanger, and then a lot of general discussions on common topics such as, temperatures, wetted materials, and so on and so forth. So, any questions so far?
Nothing. You're nailing it.
Sorry, what?
I said nothing. You're nailing it.
Thanks, Matt. Moving on to redfish definitions and preparation for the items for the specification. Matt, do you wanna help cover this topic? Sorry, Mike Thompson. Sorry.
That's probably better. So I was in a meeting this week with Jeff Ottor in his capacity as part of the DMTF, John Leung in his capacity from OCP, Doug Sandy, who's the CTO for the PCI Industrial Computer Manufacturers Group, trying to get everybody on the same page for how to do controls or effectors, whatever you want to call them. And there's been a little bit of struggle over who's going to own the IP and how it's going to be managed, and getting OCP and PICMIG and DMTF to collaborate together on making these additions to the existing redfish documents. So what Jeff Ottor decided was the easiest thing to do was to start a project within the DMTF and release what they call a work in progress document. It's just a PowerPoint presentation that has examples of the schema and how it would be used and how to implement something that's got a control in it. So we spent an hour and a half or so going over what the DMTF is planning to do. And then the PICMIG team is planning on using controls for industrial applications. So it has a lot of things in it that we don't really care about for cooling products. And we spent quite a bit of time trying to figure out how to do the additions that PICMIG needs without breaking the things that we need and what the DMTF is working on. So the final resolution on that is that we could use the work in progress schema definitions that haven't really been written yet, but are in the examples of which are in the PowerPoint presentation for how to do controls, which is what we need for controlling like fan speed and water flow rate in the rear cooler. So Serge on our team had already written a schema and presented that. What Surge has proposed and what the DMTF is planning on using are very, very similar. So we have the choice of sending comments to the DMTF asking them to change their work in progress document or adapting our document to what the DMTF is planning on doing. And I think the easiest thing to do is for us to make some minor modifications to the work that Surge has done to get it to conform to the direction that the DMTF is already heading. Since the schema for these controls from the DMTF doesn't exist yet, I've been pushing Jeff Autor just a little bit to get him to start writing a schema, which he said he could do. And once a draft of that schema exists, then we can reference it in the schema for the cooling products. So a lot of the things that Surge invented to handle controls, we can actually take out of the OCP schema if they exist in the DMTF schema. So I guess I'll be working with Jeff and John and Surge over the next few weeks to get things added to the DMTF schema and taken out of the OCP schema, and at the same time working on a presentation to describe how you use all of this for cooling products. And the presentation that John and I had talked about will cover mostly a rear door cooler. And there's no reason why we shouldn't mention or even briefly describe a CDU or a chiller or some of the other cooling devices that are in a data center, because the redfish can be used for those just as well. So I've got a bit of work ahead to get our profile for the cooling products finished up and get the schema information that Surge had done included in the DMTF schema, and then we should be ready to go. So I guess at this point, it's still going to be several weeks before we have something for a draft schema that we could submit to the IC along with the specification. And I don't know whether we need to submit the schema at the same time, or whether the specification just says we're going to have a schema and a profile, but it's going to be coming in the future.
Right. Okay. So
I don't really want to hold up submitting the specification to the IC.
right. Is there anything we have right now that can be submitted as like a work in progress? Or
yeah, we could take what Surge has already done and call it a 0.5 revision or something like that, with some and add some notes to the beginning of it or something saying that this was a initial pass and that it's going to be modified to conform to what the DMTF is doing for their implementation.
okay, so so that would be the profile of the schema, right, as a revision 0.5, and I guess the intention would be for the supporting documentation, I guess, would be you'd have to run that through the code to generate the human readable format, right?
Yes. I talked to Jeff. Yeah, I talked to Jeff Autor about that, and he said he'd be happy to help us go through that process. He says it's very simple to do, but having never done that, I don't know yet.
Okay, so create human readable. I'm just going to human readable companion document, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Okay. So how about this? After this meeting, or maybe between now and the next meeting, if we can take what's already available, right, and call that a revision 0.5. Maybe just briefly outline what are the next steps, right? That there are maybe a couple of steps before we have a revision 1.0, right?
Yes.
So that have that profile or schema, and then the human readable document. I think that's what we needed, right? Was there anything else we wanted to add? Oh, there's the mock-up, right? Which I'm assuming is the same,
Yep,
right?
yeah, the mock-up already exists and it matches the existing state of the schema.
Mm. And then I guess there's a reference to effector, but I guess that one is probably the one that you're saying is probably going to take a few weeks, right?
Yes.
Right. So I guess for now, the schema and the documentation file, and maybe the mock-up is what we can probably push forward as a revision 0.5.
Yes. And you have copies of the schema and the mock-up.
I do.
Yeah,
Sorry.
you do.
I'm not trying to be a deer in the headlights here, but yeah.
You do.
Okay.
If you don't, I
Okay.
can send them again.
Okay. So I guess we already have this portion, right?
Yep.
And sorry, mock-up. And I guess yeah, the only thing left to do is to work with Jeff Otter to create that human readable companion document. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So I guess in terms of a timeline, right? So assuming Rev 0.5 for initial submission. Sorry, I can't type today. Initial submission. I guess for next week, we can just collect all this material, quickly review. Sorry, the next meeting, we can collect all the material and review it during the next call, and then say, hey, let's go ahead and submit it.
Okay.
Is that fair?
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds good because yeah, and I think as a part of reviewing that material, like I said, is just maybe a short outline as to you know, what's missing or what steps are being taken to sort of elevate the schema or the profile to a revision 1.0. Does that sound good, Mike?
Yeah, that sounds fine.
Okay. All right. Okay, excellent. Speaking of the spec, I'm assuming no one on the call has any further updates or any clarifications or input to share while we're at it. At least the revision 1.0 draft that was sent out in previous emails.
No, apologize, currently not from my.
I have more of a question on the ORV3 frame and the door frame and frame extender dimensions. Is the ORV3 depth still 1068 and 305 on the rear door?
So on if you look at the spec, right, the 305 is a recommendation, but the hard requirement is the ability to swing open the door by 90 degrees if two adjacent racks have the same solution installed.
Yeah.
I think this was something that Mike champion for on behalf of Invent, right? Because they had a solution that a sort of an off-the-shelf solution that was greater than 305. Mike, remind me if I'm wrong. And I think through discussion, what we said is that the 305 is a recommendation for sure, but the hard requirement is the ability to be able to swing the door open by at least 90 degrees when you have two adjacent racks with the same solution, because the ability to sort of reach into the rear of the rack and do whatever service you need to with the IT gear is kind of important. So yeah.
I think it was actually two opposing racks and a hot aisle kind of thing.
Yeah, and adjacent as well, right? So yeah, you're right.
That's true.
So it was
You're
a
right.
combination of all three, right?
Yep.
It was about if you have I think we initially started with a 4-foot hot aisle, and then we had some input from the EU guys saying, hey, the EU tile is slightly smaller than the US tile, so why don't we just do increments of 1,000 millimeters? So we effectively made it 2,000 millimeters, right? The gap, which oh God, now let me pull up the spec.
1,200 millimeters. The EU tiles are 600 wide.
Right. Sorry. Yes.
Which is A2. Exactly.
Go ahead.
No, you were explaining. It's okay.
Yeah, it was just slightly smaller than that. So it's a combination of two things. One is, and I think we have a visual over here that makes it. So the 305 is, yeah, and the online version isn't the most updated also. But yeah, here's the diagram, right? So the hard requirement is the ability to have, adjacent racks and then one across the hot aisle, or one across the aisle, let's just call it that. And then the ability to swing the door open by at least 90 degrees. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it was just calling into question because with the 1068 plus the 305, I was on a customer call yesterday and they were like, well, that whole dimension is more than 1,200. And I said, well, your existing solution is more than 1,200. It's just the frame, the adapter frame plus the 1068 should be below 1,200, but I didn't have exact mechanicals on that frame adapter and what that depth was.
Yeah,
I'm
so
pretty sure I should just ask Stefan because he probably knows what the depth of that is. But
yeah, so if you look at the way the spec is defined, right, is the 305 is not only the door heat exchanger assembly, but it's also the adapter frame.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
But then once again, right, we've sort of moved this to a recommendation so as to not discount certain products that the community wants to support, right? So yeah, so the hard requirement was made the ability to swing open the door by 90 degrees. Yeah,
that works. Yeah, I'm thinking about it now, and I should have caught it yesterday when I was working on it. I should have caught it. Just ask Stefan what that frame depth is, the adapter depth is, but we're cool. We're good. Never mind. It was the biggest thing is because there's no latest update to the ORV3 spec that's out there, and I know it's not fully done, but I would have thought there would have been at least some published updates that I could have found in reference to just confirm that 1068 and the whole dimension was less than 1,200.
Yeah, so that one, if I remember correctly, as you said, the ORV3 frame design itself is something that's ongoing, right? But I do believe that that there are some CAD drops that happen every now and then. And let me check and see if I can pull that up. Yeah, because I remember there was someone who was like, I think a few weeks ago was asking about who was asking about CAD for the latest CAD for ORV3. And I think either Steve or Glenn responded, but I don't know. I was just quickly checking. I couldn't find it. But you know.
Yeah, I've seen. I think I even might have had them saved. I never think to go and look at the CAD to actually check that stuff because it's, to me, it just should. There should be, as those CAD drawings are made, the specs should be updated. And I don't have the Google Drive link to the latest ORV3 draft to quickly check that. So I sent a note to Steve Mills for a copy or access and haven't gotten a response. It's not a big deal. It's just something I was working on in the background. I figured I'd ask.
Okay, I can reach out to Steve. So what you're looking for is
The this is like what we were talking about yesterday, building out the ecosystem. The customer's looking for the depth exclusive of the door. So the ORV3 1068 frame depth plus what the depth of the adapter frame would be, that whole dimension, they have pretty much a hard limit of 12. They want that to be 1200 plus the swing door on top of that. So
yeah, I would assume that the adapter frame is something that the vendor provides along with their solution, right?
yes.
So I guess what you want to know is that what you want to check is basically the latest depth of the ORV3 rack, right? Because the adapter,
Yes.
you can sort of fill in and say, oh, 100 millimeters should be more than enough or something like that, right?
Yeah, and that's the path I sort of went down, sort of winging it, going, well, it's spec right now, listed spec, and that's what they were familiar with, was the draft that's out there. I'm like, it's at 1068, and I've said we can make the frame adapter almost any depth to make sure that we come in under 1200. So it wasn't a big deal, plus the door swing, and that's sort of where we left it.
Okay,
No, we're good. No need to take up any more time.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'll let me check in with Steve and see if there are any updates or if it's still 1060. Right? I guess that's the question, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the other one is, I sort of want to know that and not have to wait till November to get his update, because his last one was April ahead of the OCP summit in May. So just trying to stay ahead of the curve instead of behind.
Okay, so update since April. Okay, cool. That one I can actually check with Glenn directly.
Okay.
Yeah, but he's been, as you probably know, with all the blind mate interfaces stuff, I'm not sure. And also, it's working with Rital right on that right now. So it's just it just depends on what they have on their plate between versions, right? Between releases, and how quickly that goes, especially with COVID and whatnot. So yeah.
Yep. Understood.
I can check that though, Matt, for you. No worries.
Oh, awesome. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Cool. Anything else with regards to the spec or any other topics that we need to discuss or we'd like to discuss?
Nope.
All right. Excellent. Then everybody stay safe, and we'll chat again in 2 weeks. Thank you all.
All right. Sounds good.
We'll see you.
See you.
All right. Thank you.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.